Welcome. Glad all of you are here. My name is Elizabeth With, and I'm Vice President for Student Affairs. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the public hearing before I turn the microphone over for introductions. We will run this hearing just like any other public hearing. So if you would like to speak following Dr. Rawlins' comments, you are welcome to do so, but you need to sign up to do so. So without further ado in getting started, I'd like to turn the microphone over to Kevin Sanders, the Student Government President.
How are you guys doing? First of all, I want to thank you all for coming out and participating in this with us. It's a great show of student focus and being involved in our university and everything that we do. But getting straight to the point now, I have the pleasure and the privilege of introducing our very, very esteemed president, Dr. Rawlins. And he's going to come talk to you guys today about our university, and I can tell you before he comes up and talks that he loves each and every one of you and every student at the University of North Texas, and I respect him a whole lot for it. So without further ado, Dr. Rawlins, President of the University of North Texas.
Kevin and I get to introduce each other a lot, so you're lucky to be students at University of North Texas. Actually, we're lucky to be in Texas right now. The budget picture that I'm going to paint for you is not really pretty, but it's not the kind of, I was in the state of Washington before I came down here. And what's going on in the state of Washington and California and Oregon and a few other states is so devastating to the quality of education that breaks my heart. But I think even though I would have to say I don't like this picture, I think we can get this boat down the channel and focus on the quality of your education, which is the reason we're all here. So I must have a clicker someplace. Are you clicking for me? You're the clicker? All right, I just wanted to give you a little, and I'm going to be fairly brief and leave the time for your comments. I wanted to give you a picture of where we are. UNT does a quality job of education, and we do it for less. Our appropriations per student are among the lowest of all research universities, the lowest of any research university in the state of Texas. Our tuition levels, I will show you in just a moment where we stand. There is one, University of Texas El Paso is a little lower than we are, but we're lower. And truthfully, from what I'm hearing, the kinds of projections of what we want to do are lower than most of the institutions are talking about. But we do have some reductions that we're looking at for 2011, 2012. Cheryl, will you hit that, please? I did want to show you what's been happening in the past few years that is of some concern to me, and I think should be of concern to you, that we've had very rapid growth in our student enrollment, and we expect this rapid growth to continue, but that our number of faculty expansion has not kept up with the growth in students. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have teachers. That this faculty number does not include the lecturers. It does not include some of the temporary faculty we have. And we have excellent people in those roles and positions, but the heart of your education is in those full-time tenure-track faculty. And we haven't kept up with the hiring. We've gone up 26% while our enrollment has gone up 34%, and that means that there are fewer of them relative to you. And you need to have a strong faculty here. And I pledge to you that we're going to turn that around. Next one. This is where we are in tuition and fees compared with the other institutions that are called emerging research universities. And this, we've not put in Texas A&M and Texas. They are already graduated research universities, I guess. But here you see UT Dallas, University of Houston, Arlington, San Antonio, and Tech, and then us, and then El Paso. So those 7 institutions have been identified by the state as the emerging research universities, and you can see we're about $250 lower than the average there. Next. On the table right now are 2 bills, House Bill 1 and Senate Bill 1. For purpose of reference, I have listed up there our current base budget. That is, if we were to do exactly what we're doing right now, and there were no inflation, cost us $287 million. We have some big plans we'd like to implement that would push that number up, but just what we're doing now. So that means that we don't improve the student-faculty ratio, we don't find new spaces, we just maintain the ones we have. That's $287 million. The House budget would reduce that to $277 million. Turns out $10 million is a lot of people, and it's a lot of education. The Senate bill for us, not for everybody in the state, but for us, is a better bill because it would only cut us about $4 million. Go next one, please. So this is where we started. We have to plan for those budget reductions. So we sat down with every unit on campus, whether it's the facilities and grounds people or the Department of Religion or the College of Engineering. Everybody had input into what they would do if we had to reduce the budget. And we, as they were putting this input together, I said, I want you to plan around 2 or 3 priorities. First priority is this institution and all of its sister institutions are primarily dedicated to our students. That's why we're here, that's why we're funded, that's our purpose, and we must protect the, when we bring you here, you're studying whatever you're studying, from engineering to mathematics to psychology. My friend over here studying psychology. There is an implied promise when you come to the University of North Texas that we will offer you the opportunity to get a highly qualified degree. A degree that will carry with it a strong reputation wherever you go. That will give you the core of information that will allow you to compete with people who are graduating from other universities all over the country. I think we keep that promise. And one of the things I said is our brand is to do that. We believe it's the primary expectation of our students and the people of Texas, and that's the first thing we have to be concerned about. Second thing, we have some areas where we've established such a reputation that, for example, this is called the 1 o'clock lounge. You all know why it's called the 1 o'clock lounge? Is it because we have a math lecturer here at 1 o'clock? What happens? We have music. Music is part of, is the soul of this institution. It's a program that has been recognized internationally for a long time. We have to protect those programs because our reputation depends on those programs, and the students we brought in from all over the world depend on it. And then take care of and protect our faculty and staff. They are the heart. I mean, they are the people who do what you came here to have done. And we need to protect them. So those 3 rules then guided us in putting together a budget. But you know, you can't take money out of a budget without having effects. So we're saying, reality, we take the 10 million out. We get some crowding of classes. We get some increased student-faculty ratios. We would probably have to reduce the workforce by about 100 when you take faculty and staff together. But even if we did 100, we would try to do it by attrition. An environment where you start laying people off is a kind of environment that we're going to avoid at all costs. And we would have reduced counseling, mentoring, and health and safety support for students. How big are these reductions? I said to the group yesterday, for most of you, you probably wouldn't notice the difference. Where does it show up? Well, you know, maybe a couple trees die out here that wouldn't otherwise die. Maybe you or the guy sitting next to you can't get into class anymore because it's too crowded. Maybe the class you needed to graduate won't be taught this semester. And, you know, that's what happens. It's not that everything doesn't just go to heck in a basket. We would do everything we could to protect it. But you start seeing pressures that are not the kinds of pressures that allow us to easily keep the promises that we made to you. So as we look at this, there's some good news. We think we'll get some revenue to come in to offset part of this. So, you know, these are some of the things I just mentioned. Go on to the next one. So our needs are first, if we're going to follow what I said, the undergraduate education is first, we need more faculty and we need more space. I don't know if you've noticed, I've been in a lot of universities. I've never been in a university that was as fully utilized as this one is. I mean, this place is, I don't want to say crowded, but it's full, okay? And we need some room for expansion. We need to convert some spaces. We need to use our technology a little better, and we need more faculty. We have a lot of searches going on for faculty right now. I would not like to have to discontinue those. And if we're going to add another couple of thousand students next year, which is probably what's going to happen, we need the equivalent percentage of faculty increase to make sure we maintain those faculty-student ratios. We also need additional scholarship money. We need to retain the superior faculty that we have. One of the things one of the saddest things that happens in an institution when you have big budget cuts, and I've been around long enough to be in good times and bad times, is that somebody who isn't experiencing quite as hard a time as you are steal your best people away from you. And that is the soul of your institution. You don't want that to happen. We have a number of research efforts underway. Those are important for your education because I want to assure that the faculty who you're exposed to are on the cutting edge of their fields. We operate pretty thin. This for the first time learned in our budget hearings that for our buildings and grounds, we spend about half the national average per square foot. That's a little scary. I mean, it's a good thing we're saving money, right? But you know, you can only cut those corners so tight. Next one. We will recover some of this with some enrollment growth in the fall. So we've kind of said, what if we grow 3%? We don't want to grow much more than 3% because we're already pretty full. But what if we grew 3% and you already have a 3.9% tuition increase built in from last year's action? How much would that generate for us? Well, it generates a considerable amount of money, almost $7 million. But to continue our plans and to start moving forward on those ratios, after long deliberation, we proposed an additional $5 million. Next one. $5 million adds up to a 2.8% increase, further increase, additional increase. I want to be clear about that. I don't want, no sleight of hand here. You're going to experience a 3.9% increase if we take no action. If we took an action, it would be an additional 2.8 on top of that. That would be $117.75 for a full-time student. Next one. And it would generate $6,335,511. $5 million for operating and about 1.3 for additional need-based financial aid. So how do we spend it? This is how we spend it. As I stand here before you now, I make a pledge that if we do this, and if the board approves it, this is how we will spend the money. We will put 1.3 in need-based financial aid. We will put $2.5 million into additional faculty and lecturers. We will put $1.5 million into classroom and building needs, including the renovation of some rooms that are currently obsolete, which would give us some additional space, and some planning for future buildings. In the long run, when you return here as alums to celebrate the football national championship that we will win in 2012. You all believe that, don't you? Well, maybe 2013. Let's not rush it. Out there where old Fouts Field is, there will be a new academic complex. We are blessed that that is right here by the campus, and we have some opportunities this coming year to start planning for the effective use of that space. And we will increase maintenance and operations by $1 million. And one of the things that that I will do, whether we pass the tuition increase or not, is I will report to you at least once a year. I like talking to students, and I think it's a good thing to be accountable to them about the money that they're spending. So it's good. So we decided that we don't want to shoot low, but you know, I don't think we're that far off. When I say we're going to be the best undergraduate institution in the state of Texas, I don't think we're that far off. This is a good place to study. You are studying with good people. You're around people who care about you. You're in I think, a relatively supportive environment. We can be better. We all know we can be better. And there are better institutions than this. But I don't think we're that far off from that goal. And that is the goal, quite clearly. And it requires some feedback from you about the things that are needed. So I think it's what we deserve. My whole life has been spent trying to improve the quality of higher education, public higher education. I was told by the father of the University of California system when I was just a young man, which is now quite a long time ago, that the most important institution in American democracy was high-quality public education. At the time, I thought he had a few screws loose. You know, how can that be the most important thing? But as I've grown older, I see that that is, for so many people, the point of access to a life that is a transition. And I owe anything that I've been able to do in my whole life, I owe it to the opportunities that were afforded to me by the taxpayers of states. Now, things have changed. Things have changed. When I went to college, the first quarter I went to college cost me $25. There were no loans because I didn't need them. I talked to a woman yesterday who was younger than I and told me that her first semester at the University of North Texas was $40. Does that mean it was cheap? It was certainly cheaper than it is now, or less expensive than it is now, but it's also a world where the state was paying the vast majority of the cost. Our states are now strapped for money. They've taken on lots of other obligations, and they're cutting higher education across the country. I testified before the legislature last week, and one of the things I said to them is, you know, we understand that you're going to probably reduce our budget. We understand that in the current circumstances where you're running a deficit, you don't feel like you have any choice. But with everybody in America, whether it's the President of the United States, the Congress, the governor of the state, the leader of our city, all saying education is the most important thing for the future. To be reducing the expenditures on education is not the right thing to do. It's not the right thing to do. The only good news is, as I said, it's not being reduced here quite as fast as it is some other places. So am I in favor of increased tuition? No. I'd like to reduce it to about zero. I think it's a good investment for the state. I believe that the investment that the public made in my generation paid off, and in the generation after me paid off, and they're still making an investment in you, even though we're talking about increases in tuition. Don't forget that the state of Texas still pays about half of what it costs. So we have not been abandoned entirely. So I thank you for the opportunity to talk to you about the budget, and we'll now start with the list, I guess, and let you make comments. If you need clarifying information on these numbers or things, I'll be happy to answer questions. But as a formal public hearing, which is what this is an opportunity primarily for you to make a statement and be ready to testify if somebody needs you. So thank you.
Thank you, President Rawlins. My name is Mercedes Fulbright. I'm the Student Body and Student Government Vice President. I just wanted to let you guys know that we're very grateful for y'all coming out, especially the students. I'm glad to see a lot. I can imagine President Rawlins is excited to see y'all. But just wanted to keep some house rules. We have 2 minutes for each person to speak, or if you have any questions or any comments that you have, just please keep it in 2 minutes. I have 10 people here, so once I say your name, I'll come to you. So just raise your hand and you can ask your question or have your comment. Kevin Sanders.
Okay, how y'all doing? I'm gonna talk to you guys not as your president, but as a student first, because I do pay the same tuition and fees that you guys pay, so this affects me as well. But in saying that, I don't care if it's not the popular thing to say or if you guys hate me for saying it, but I'm in complete agreement and I do respect and I support our president in his decision to better our university, because that's what this is. At the University of North Texas, we consider this university to be a great university. Right now, we're not what we can be. And I think if we invest in our futures, if we invest in our education, which is the main reason that we're at this university, we can be that great university in the state of Texas. We can compete with the University of Texas and Texas A&M. I've seen students at UNT that can do the same things that students at Texas can do and that Texas A&M can do. But the difference is that we have to invest in our future and we have to be willing to sacrifice a few things. Whether it's a few extra dollars or a few $100 like we're talking about right now, you know, that's a small investment when you're talking about what it's going to do for you in the future. Our university is taking steps to support us and to invest in us. If you look outside and look at all the construction, the business building, the life sciences complex, that's a direct investment in the students at North Texas's future. It's time for us to answer the bell and to start taking on some of that responsibility as well in our own education and our own future. This is not a time to be complacent as a university. We need to be moving forward. You know, we can't continue to be second fiddle to other schools, and we can't continue to be okay with it. I'm not okay with it. I expect more, I want more, and I ask you guys, as people who do elect me as the president, to trust me in my decision making and supporting the president. And I do ask that in your questions and in your comments today and in the future, regardless if we increase or if we don't increase, that you guys be reasonable in your thinking and in your logic and not be cynical, because it's important that you see things clearly and see that everything that's done is because of you guys. Thank you.
I have Daniel Cave next.
I had a question for President Rawlins. Since I graduated in 1992, higher education has gone up by 450% from when I went. At the same time, wages, non-degree wages, have gone up about 50%. So they've gone up about 2% a year. College is going up about 8.5% a year, another 7% this year. And with the state already planning on cutting out Texas grants and TMAS, and the new Republican House already having passed to eliminate Pell Grants while student loans has not increased, do you think we're coming very close to a point where basically where we were early last century, where no one that's not upper middle class and above will be able to attend, possibly as early as this fall?
This working? I'll keep my answer brief. It's a good question. I don't think we're going there. I think there is such an awareness right now, and there's such a need for college education. We have raised this generation of people with the belief that their college education was necessary for success. When you look back 70 or 80 years, that was not the common culture. And there's a strong feeling that it has to happen. And the question is, as you push more and more of it onto private citizens, who picks it up? Right now, you know, let's all be honest about this. A lot of it is picked up by tuition, but a big share of that comes from Pell Grants, federal loans. The federal government so far has not backed off. And this is helping us get through this crisis with states. We've been through almost 20 years of consistent reductions in the percentage going to higher education. You are right that the cost of education, tuition cost, has gone up faster than than the wages and salaries. You're absolutely correct. But it has not gone up much faster than in the expenditures per student. It's just that the burden is shifting from the public burden to the individual burden. How far that can go, I don't know. I happen to be optimistic. I think there is a recognition that something needs to happen. We are in the first generation. The generation just before you, the people who are probably your generation, is the first generation in the history of America to be less educated than the previous generation. I don't think that that's unrelated to the pullback of public support. We are now losing jobs and we're losing scientific and technological leadership in the world. It's highly recognized. You know, the competitive position, I'm hearing more and more, is we have to do something about that. You know, I've been wrong before, but I think this worm will turn. In the meantime, what I want to do is try to protect what we have here. We will try to do that. And I wanted to be clear again. You know, if we don't pass this tuition, if we don't increase this tuition, it's not going to be the end of the University of North Texas. But it'll be a year when we didn't make any progress. It'll be a year when we'll be struggling and doing everything just to hang on to a few things, and we'll probably slip back in a few places. We can't afford to do that very often. But I share your concern. I've been testifying before legislatures for about 25 years, saying the same thing. Unless you turn this around, we're going to start seeing lower attendance at universities, which we are. We're going to start seeing other countries with higher per capita income, which they have, and we're going to see science and technology shifting to those parts of the world where they're investing in it, and that's also happening. Who would have thought 25 years ago that India would graduate almost 8 times as many engineers as we have in the United States? So, you know, it's not a trivial question. Thank you very much.
Liz Clinton.
Right here. So yeah, I think that most people are probably aware that we're seeing cuts across the state to education, to public education. We're seeing layoffs of teachers, and we're seeing schools that are being closed down. And I know that these cuts are coming down from the Texas state legislation, so that's why people are organizing to go to a Texas-wide march and rally in Austin on March 12th. It's called Save Texas Schools March and Rally. It's going to be teachers, students, faith-based organizations, all organizing to go down to make demands to our legislators that they not make these deep cuts to public education that will greatly affect us. The group I'm organizing with will be raising demands like tax the rich, end the wars, and take inspiration from the struggles that are going on in Wisconsin. So we would just like to invite people to come down with us. And I actually have a question for President Rawlins. Thanks so much for speaking today. I hear all this talk about how we have to tighten our belts. Well, I don't think that students and workers can really tighten our belts anymore. So I'm wondering, what sort of cuts are the rich willing to take? What sort of tax increases are they willing to take? I'm wondering what your salary is and what sort of cuts you're willing to take to your salary in order to help save public education for students. And yeah, that's it.
That's a good question. My salary is not determined by myself, it's determined by the board, but I will put a sizable amount of it back into scholarships at the University of North Texas. I care about that. Thank you.
Sean Smallwood.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sean Smallwood. I'm a senator for the College of Arts and Sciences here at the Student Government Association, and I just want to thank President Rawlins for coming out and being very transparent with the student body at this point. But I also do want to comment on the feelings that I can pretty much testify that y'all are having at this moment. I am very scared about a lot of these budget cuts that we're having, and I understand where a lot of you are coming from on this, but One thing that I do want to say is that if we do plan on moving forward as a university and as a Tier 1 university, as one of those emerging research institutions, we have to start putting faith in our administration at this point, because they're the ones who have dealt with these kinds of situations before. They're the ones who have dealt with budget cuts in the past, and President Rawlins has had this kind of experience in the past as well. And so I just want to show personally on a personal note that my support for our president does come at this time, but I also want you to know that you're not alone in this fight, that there are representatives that are going down to Austin tonight and tomorrow to talk to legislators about these budget cuts and to tell them how much it's going to affect us. And so we do want you to know that your voices are being heard at this time. Thank you.
James Saunders.
I'd like to thank you for first speaking, President Rawlins. It's really great to have you out here and kind of explaining what these budget cuts mean for us as students. But some of my concerns that arise are from me, in fact, being a student here, just realizing that the latest reports show that I am now part of the largest growing demographic of the unemployed in America. And with that going on, the idea that I'm very well entering a market that is completely unfriendly to college graduates, how can this 3.8, or the ranging, the 2.9 to whatever possible tuition increases we see, it very much frightens me that I'm going to have even more debt on my shoulders, which is already building up, that I'm going to have to deal with when I'm already going to be part of this growing demographic of the unemployed. And so my question is that I do see all of these projects that are occurring here on the campus, whether it's the stadium or whether it's having speakers here for thousands and thousands of dollars. And as a student here, I tend to feel that I don't have very much democratic control over where my money goes to. And while I appreciate this plan and I appreciate the board and the work that's going towards this, I still feel that this is a time where students who are going to be struggling in the future should have more democratic control over where their money goes to in regards to salaries and in regards to how we spend our money here on campus.
One little response on the unemployment rate. You're right, the job market's tough out there. The overall unemployment rate in America is about 9%. The unemployment rate for college graduates is less than 5%. When you're entering the market, it's a little tougher. But one of the things I want to do is make sure you can get degrees, because you can compete much more effectively with a degree. When I used to teach this subject 20 years ago, a college graduate made about 80% more than a high school graduate. Today, it's about 100% more. So even though it's tough out there, if you're going to compete, you really do need this college education. And you know, we could talk about individual projects and what they mean. And I've always enjoyed working with students and trying to give them a voice in what they do. But the important thing to me is that we offer you the opportunity to get a great degree, so that even though it is difficult out there, that you'll be prepared to compete. Thank you.
Annalisa Vargas.
It seems to me that, you know, you keep talking about that we need to expand the university and that we need to protect, you know, our investment here, but it seems kind of counterproductive that we're having to, you know, you're getting less money statewide for colleges. Why is expansion such a high priority right now? It seems to me that if you have a deficit that you need to cover, that the last thing you should be doing is looking for ways to spend more money. So, you know, what you're asking both us and, you know, whoever's paying for our college, if it's us, if it's our parents, whatever, you're asking us to, you know, to give more of our financial resources, you know, for our education, but what reductions in, you know, in university spending are we seeing? You mentioned that, you know, some of your salary is going to be going into financial scholarships. Is every administrator's salary going to be doing that? Are there building plans and proposals that can be postponed until a better financial environment is here and achievable? where's the middle ground? Because this seems a little one-sided, that we have to pay more for our education, but the university continues to expand and continues to, do all this other thing that's not necessarily going to affect me. When I graduate, this new business building is not going to be finished. When I graduate, I'm probably not going to get to see the new stadium. Where is the benefit for me as a student, where I'm going to have to pay, higher tuition rates, but not see any, actual benefit from it?
I'm not sure I understand. If you're going to be around long enough to pay higher tuition, then you are going to see the opening of the business building and the stadium, because they're happening. But you are correct that we invest for the future. We plant acorns so that others can sit in the shade of oaks. The reason to grow, there are two reasons to grow. The biggest reason and the most important reason is we are sitting in the middle of one of the most underserved regions in higher education in the country. I feel an obligation not just to the students who are here, but to those who want to be here and who want to seek that education. And in order to do that, we're going to have to take more students. A more practical, short-run answer to your question, however, is that the way this particular state funds universities is they fund it on a per head count basis. So with each student comes that average funding. And if I could take the same amount of money and spread it over fewer students, then we could say we'll just increase the quality and reduce the number of students. And you see that happening in certain places. That's exactly what private institutions do. They say, we don't care about everybody, but those we do care about, we're going to take good care of, and we'll hold it down. We can spend more per student. Even if we wanted to do that, we can't, because we get funded for you. I mean, you are on a formula. When you enroll here, the state of Texas cranks the big machine, and that automatically turns out about half of what it takes to educate you. And the other half comes basically from your tuition.
Thanks, Mercedes. I have a question for President Rawlins. So next year I'll be a senior, and I realize now, like, when my sister is applying for college, she probably won't be able to go to a university like I went to. We come from a pretty low-income family, and I rely pretty heavily on scholarships and grants and loans that come from my FAFSA, and I guess I'm just really scared of what it's going to look like. I'm scared that I'm not going to be able to afford to graduate, and I want to know, like, what kind of cutbacks I'm going to see, and if I'll be able to get my diploma.
I think, and I really honestly think, and it's what I said earlier, I think we can maintain momentum. And I think if we could get this small increase in tuition, we could even increase momentum. The best thing to tell your sister is do her homework and get good grades, because there are still money available for good students. This institution, by the way, has made an extraordinary effort for good low-income students. We have not only the regular programs, but some special programs, like Emerald Eagle program, that are there for those students. You notice of the 6.3 that was up there, $1.3 million of that is set aside specifically for need-based scholarships. I'm also, we're testifying, we're working hard. To be honest with you, the Texas grant issue is a huge issue, and we're going to fight that one to the last. I'm not ready to give up on that, okay? We're not giving up on this thing. We are fighting hard every inch of the way. We're not giving up. I know there are press here, aren't there? How many press people are here? Yeah, there must be several, must be. There's some things I kind of wish I could say, and the press is here, and then you know what I do? I say it anyway, because what can they do to me? I mean, I've already been retired twice, so this is... When we were in the legislature, and when we did this testimony, and we talked about how this is the wrong thing to do. this is a bad cut to make. And we got some interesting responses on what ought to happen to financial aid. There are a lot of people who think we already have too much financial aid out there. I want you to know that our university and our system and most of the institutions in the state of Texas have taken a strong stand that as a Texan, if you have qualified for admission to one of these institutions, we are going to try to help you find a way through, and that holds for your system. So tell her to do her homework. The grades are going to be the thing. You know, if she's qualified, we want her at University of North Texas.
Britt Schultz.
Thanks again for having this session. I really appreciate the opportunity to come out and see the plan and have an opportunity to speak. I do want to echo some of the comments from some other students, my fellow students here, and also just say and voice my disapproval for this plan and for what's happening statewide. I don't support this, and I actually think that education should be a right to all, not the few who can keep their heads above these hikes. But I know this is coming down from the legislative pipeline. I know this isn't spawned here. I know this is coming down from people that aren't educators, but mostly businessmen, and have other agendas in mind, and I know that. But being a new union member, particularly, I've been directly exposed to what austerity measures actually look like, especially in Texas, and especially in public education. But what I am saying here, just to make this statement, is that we shouldn't grin and bear it. We shouldn't have to do that. We shouldn't be asked to do this belt tightening, and we don't have to take it laying down. The truth is that priorities are not right in this state, and I think we know that, or we wouldn't all be sitting here having this conversation to whatever varying degree we are. They're not right in this country either. For that matter. If that were the case, we wouldn't be funding wars and big business. We'd be focused on putting money towards the betterment of our education system, you know, and we'd be seeing the effects of that. But like my fellow student mentioned, Liz Clinton right here, people are organizing mass demonstrations and actions in conjunction with unions, independent school districts, also concerned citizens at the base level. And we are going to be organizing in Austin to voice our disapproval of this. Because these kinds of budget cuts, these set a precedent that push the financial limits of students like myself. And I won't voice support for this, and I won't ask another student to either. Because these are, excuse me, it's a little, I was trying to contain the emotion here. I won't voice support for this or any other action of austerity, because I think it's our responsibility to oppose these measures as students.
May Brown.
Like everyone else said, thank you, President Rawlins, for coming out here and talking to us very honestly about the plan, letting us know exactly what's happening. First, I'd like to dedicate a few seconds to tell everybody that the two people in the Texas legislature that are representing the area that this university is sitting on, is Craig Estes and Myra Crownover. They're both voting for the tuition assistance for the school to be cut. These are both people that chances are most people in this room didn't even either realize they voted for or didn't vote for them at all. Because we're students, we don't vote. It's unfortunate. But I also want to ask a question about the tenure track for faculty. Because we're going to be paying more in tuition, and my business anthropology class last year, we did a project with CLEAR, talking to them about how much the administration wants the faculty to put more focus on online classes because they can charge the same amount, more students. But the thing is, you give, I don't know, I'm sure it's not your decision personally, it's a board or it's a group of administrators that decides how many points go into tenure track for different things. You give, the school gives educators, the people that are supposed to be teaching us, professors, people with doctorate degrees, more points to go for going to conferences and presenting papers on behalf of the school than for developing new course material.
That's maybe how it is with one area. It's not that way across the university, but perhaps we ought to have these little visits more often, and we could explore more issues than just tuition. You know, it's I told somebody yesterday, you have to remember I spent the 60s in Berkeley, so Having people disagree about things is not the end of the world. But having the opportunity to air those disagreements and try to understand each other better and let people express their point of view is what universities are all about. And so, you know, I'm impressed. They told me this is what they know. They told me I'd be lucky to get 10 people down here. What do you think? Huh? Thank you for being here. You thanked me for doing this. Thank you for being here.
I guess I had question, comment, concern. My first concern and comment was towards the tuition that she asked earlier about her sister. I was valedictorian of one of the larger 5A schools in Texas, and UNT offered me barely any scholarships to where I actually can't make my next payment to the school, so I'm gonna have to take out another loan. But in all honesty, I wouldn't mind this tuition increase if I weren't already $30,000 in debt for retaking high school through the core classes here. A lot of them are the exact same things we take there, and I don't feel like I've learned anything until I finally pushed into my major, which was $30,000 later, which is RTVF, and now I'm enjoying it more here and I'm learning more, but I just retook high school for 30 grand and didn't have scholarships to cover it. So that's one concern where if tuition went up, I'd be okay if they limited the core and changed around the degree plans. And also just a more fun comment, I guess, to think about since we are paying these tuition increases. I just had a proposal that what if like every graduating student, once they receive their diploma, got a voucher for a class ring? Because that's 1/2 of the tuition of one credit that we take, and it would cover that. So I think that'd be kind of cool to graduate and at least get that voucher while we're getting all these tuition increases. Because like I said, we've already paid for all these classes and it would only cost 1/2 of one credit. So I think that'd be kind of cool for all of us if it could be considered. Thank you.
I just want you to know that I'm not in this position just because, and I'm not like A&M where they pay your tuition for being the president or vice president. And I totally understand my friend Abby over here, how it feels to see this, and I know, especially every year. And I am on scholarships, I am on grants, and I do pull loans. And I want y'all to understand that I really do love this university, and I can tell that you all do too. And we just have to understand we have to invest in this university to see it get to the level that we want to. Because I know all of y'all probably wanted to go to an Ivy League and get the Ivy League experience, and you have to understand that UNT is one of the most affordable universities in the state of Texas, and I think this tuition increase it's gonna hurt some of us, it's gonna hurt me personally, but we have to understand that we are getting a great education, and President Rawlins wants to make sure that we have that same quality education. So don't think that I'm being a bias by being the vice president, but I seriously have to feel this burn that you all are feeling next year, and I have another year here. So it's not that I'm just leaving after this. I have another year to see this. And I want y'all to understand that he and all the other administrators and all the other students that are fighting for this to make sure that we have the quality education, y'all need to just understand that he and the students, student government especially, we're investing in this. And tonight, right after this, we're going to Capitol Day. And if you have any concerns, please come to Union 320S and just tell us what you want us to do as your student government. Kevin and I only have 2 months here, but you have a student government for years. It will never leave. So if you have any concerns, please just come to our meetings. Let us know. We talk to him personally. He'll probably be here for a couple of more years. So if you want to speak to him, come to your student representatives and just let us know, because I personally didn't know that everyone felt this way until literally now. So I know Kevin and I and some of the 10 representatives that are going with us, we're going out on Capitol Day, and we're letting them know that this is not good and this is not okay with us. So don't think that I'm just up here advocating for tuition increase. It's not fun, but you have to understand that we want the best quality education, and it has to start now. So thank you for coming out. We really appreciate it. Do you have any closing
Let
words?
me just say to Mercedes, I've done the Ivy League thing. I'll take North Texas.
I will too.